Good afternoon, Steady On friends. This is Angie Bauman, and I'm here with my friend Erin L. Todd, and we are going to be discussing for the next few minutes this whole issue that I think so many of us deal with that has to do with body image and weight. Erin, before I even introduce you, how would you describe the topic that we're going to talk about for the next few minutes?
I think I'm hoping it's going to be a conversation about identity in Christ and kind of reclaiming that from diet culture,
I
because
love that.
body image
Yes.
and diet and everything
Yes.
industry has completely sidelined
Yes.
most of us.
Identity in Christ, yeah, and how dieting and body image and what we're going to talk about that Erin talks about her hustle for worthiness. And I think that manifests itself in a bunch of different ways for us, but especially as women, this whole concept of what beautiful is, right? And so this is my friend Erin L. Todd, who comes to us from St. Petersburg, Florida. Am I right? I'm gonna tell you what I think I know about Erin, and then you can correct me when I'm wrong. Okay? So this is, and she lives in St. Do you call it St. Pete? I visited St. Pete one time when I was
I
here.
do.
Yeah, St. Pete, and with her husband, and they have a French bulldog named Rufus. Is this true?
Yes, it is.
And and you are an attorney and a writer. What kind of law do you practice, Erin?
Condominium and HOA.
Okay, all right. And she declares herself a masterpiece and a work in progress simultaneously. I love that. Would you talk about just why does that resonate with you so much, that phrase, a masterpiece and a work in progress simultaneously?
I think I experienced, as part of that hustle for worthiness you mentioned, this just tension between acceptance and improvement, and not and believing falsely that they were mutually exclusive concepts.
Mutually exclusive.
And they're
Yes,
not.
exactly. Yes.
So
And yeah, go ahead.
and just, I mean, it's both. You can be
Yeah.
a masterpiece, God's masterpiece,
Mhm.
handiwork, and still be a work in progress because he's not done with you. And it's just kind of holding those two things together instead of thinking you have to choose. You don't.
Yes, and walking in the tension between the 2, right? I would describe myself the same way, and my I've been so works oriented where I think as we learn more about your story, so much of it was about your diet and body image, and mine's been about productivity. But to be able to rest and not be doing something or producing something and still feel like I'm valuable has been this huge learning experience, and something I still deal with sometimes. When I'm insecure, I want to do, right? I want to, because that's what I can control. And isn't a lot of this, however it manifests itself, it's about control and trust issues underneath all of this, I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so can we believe in our identity and the fact that we don't have to hustle for our worthiness while we seek to be the best we can be and grow? And yeah, so I'm just so delighted that you're here and to open up this conversation, especially as it connects to diet and body image. And I learned a fun fact about you that we have in common, and that is, if I'm right, you can recite every line of The Little Mermaid and sing the songs. Is this true?
Yes, and I have a good friend with girls that are of the age where that is impressive.
Well, I love it. I don't know if you can see. Can you see my aerial picture above my head that's on, I don't know if you can
Yes,
make that
I
out of it.
can. In the black frame, I see it back there.
So that's my Disney wall because I'm a Disney girl, huge Disney girl. And that picture is actually signed by Jodie Benson, who is the voice of the Little Mermaid in it's one of my favorite things that I own. And actually, my friend Maria, who is a bigger Little Mermaid fan than I am, she actually was at my house one time not too long ago. And she's like, when you die, will you leave me that picture? I'm like, this is what you want out of all my stuff. You want my Little Mermaid picture. But is there anything about the Little Mermaid, I just have to ask, that really resonates with you? Or does it happen to just be like a fun movie with great music?
I think I have been drawn to redheads in culture just because I'm a redhead. And so obviously as a little girl, I gravitated. She was my favorite Disney character. And I mean, how about that for like, as a child, as a girl, I'm thinking I need to look like
that.
Mermaid. At least the top half of me. And that has never been the case and never will be the case.
Right.
So
I think it's interesting. I'm interested in your take on this before we even dive into something deeper. I think even like the company, the Disney company, in all of their the way that they depict women has changed in the last, even since the time that I was young. I think the characters are stronger, and there's more about their heart than just their looks in the movies, I think. But I don't know.
I think that is the case overall, and I haven't watched some of the more recent ones. I've never seen Frozen. Although
What?
I've heard
Oh
no! From the same little sweet girls. I know the music.
This is a must-do.
But I mean, even if that's the case, and you're giving the fuller picture of womanhood and how their personality is being portrayed in the story, they still all look the same.
Very good point. Yes. Yes.
There's no diversity in bodies in women in Disney princesses, which is a shame, because most of us don't look like
that. That's
and we
right.
don't need to.
Right. Yeah, that's a very and the message that we send the little girls, I think, and probably you have strong. I would guess you have strong feelings about that in all kinds of images, movies, our music. You know, the message that we send to the little girls. I think I'm a mother of sons, and so I don't deal with that like in my house all the time. But the message that we send is you must look like this to be what? How would you to be important, to be celebrated,
to be good enough is how I always put it in my head. And you know, I never had really any external pressure, with the exception of one family member, giving me that message. It was all what I was just observing from movies and TV shows and magazines as a kid, as a consumer of media in this country. That's why I think it's such a cultural problem.
Yes. So let's talk a little about you talk about how you were involved in what you call a hustle for worthiness. What does that mean to you? Define that a little bit for us, and how did that manifest itself in your life?
Sure. The earliest version of that, I think it would have been when I realized as a little girl, I didn't look like the other little girls. Not just because I have red hair, but my body didn't look like everybody else's. So my strategy was, all right, well, I'm going to be the smart girl.
Okay.
And so I was like, straight A student, let me hustle and get these grades and be perfect in that regard and do all the extracurriculars and just kind of get my identity and value from earning.
Yes.
And striving and performing. I think that sounds like something you were probably doing.
Yes.
And then that worked for a little while, but then puberty was not my friend. And so I turned that hustle, and while still doing all of the straight A's, let me perfect my body, and let me start dieting, and let me try and conform to what I'm supposed to look like, in air quotes. So, that started for me at a really, really young age. And you were absolutely right earlier, when you said it was a control issue. I was trying to get control over, my perceived outcome of life. I will be happy when I have this body. I will be happy when I am, the homecoming queen and the class president and all of these things. So, and that takes a lot of work.
Yes.
So
it's consuming.
Hustle.
It's consuming. Yes. Now, I want to be very frank and say, I think probably anybody watching is saying, she's so lovely. Why was she insecure? I'm just being honest, right? I think that you are lovely. And I know that our viewers are going to say the same thing. So can I ask, did you deal with a weight problem, or were you self-conscious about something in particular?
I was in a much larger body is how I would describe it. I was a big kid, and I had terrible skin when I was a teenager. I had braces. I just was a little ugly duckling, and I just didn't look like the popular girls, and didn't get any attention from boys, and didn't have the life that I thought I would have if I looked like Little Mermaid, or the character from Dawson's Creek, or whatever it was at that time. So,
and isn't it when something is our insecurity, isn't it so easy for us to say, if I just had that, then I would be fill in the blank, right? Then I would have we get so fixated on what we do not have, and we're willing to take such great burden on. Is that, in order to try to attain it,
Yeah.
and never rush, and this, I think, goes back to your masterpiece work in progress, never realizing that actually the thing that we most want, we already have in our relationship with Christ. It's just not going to make our acne go away today, or, whatever. And can't, yeah. And as we mature, how do we lean into that and accept his peace as the answer, right? Yeah.
Right.
So why do you think, and hey, Melanie, I want to look at a couple people that are commenting. Hey, Melanie. And also, Lisa says that she has been at St. Pete many times, many Easter weeks is her,
Oh, yay.
used to live there. So yay. So welcome, Lisa and Melanie. Why do you think food and body image are such essential issues in the lives of women? I'm going to ask, do you think it also affects men? Or do you think it's mostly women? And why is it such a big deal, especially for women? Because our audience today is going to be mostly women.
I think it affects women a little bit more, but I'm seeing it more in men. Now that I have eyes to recognize this as a problem, I can see it just because I'm kind of tuned into that now. I would have told you 10 years ago that this is only something women deal with, because, the thin ideal, the beauty standards, like trying to look like a supermodel or whatever it is, that applies more so to women, I think.
Yeah.
And the message is more strong culturally. I think for men, that messaging is more about them being successful and a provider. We're not so much about their physical appearance, but what is masculine in this culture is one thing, and what is feminine in this culture is being that model.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. And I think it goes back to what we were talking about with the cultural, this is what you need to look like in order to be enough. Right. And it's so interesting. I think about this in heart issues, because I talk a lot about like being vulnerable before the Lord and what that looks like, and being willing to be yourself and embrace that. And vulnerability and being willing to, our unique attributes, I'm going to say this about our heart, are the things that people are most drawn to about us. And yet they are often the things that we try so hard to stifle and make and conform to what we think is the right thing. And would it be right to pick that up and put that on the outside of us as well? Like our uniqueness. How many times have I seen somebody with this, like, you can tell, just naturally curly hair or something, or your red hair. And I'm like, that's so lovely. It's just different and lovely. And yet often that thing is what makes people like, I just wish it would go away. So it wouldn't, I don't know. Do you think that's accurate?
Yeah. I think people fear their like points of difference.
Yes.
They're wanting to be the same when we're not made to be the same.
No.
We are supposed to be
right.
unique. Like,
yes.
That's why we all are. And that's why diversity in appearance and personality and giftings, like that is so important to the overall body of Christ. And when we reject that, and we resist what's different about us, or try and change something about us that we think isn't the way we want. For me, like that was not accepting myself the way God made me, was basically rejecting God.
Yes.
And reframing it that way is what made me go, I gotta do something different. Like, this is not okay.
I want to say that again. I think it's not accepting the way that I was created is basically rejecting God. That's powerful. Those are powerful words. And it made me think about several years ago, I just turned 45. And when I turned 40, I decided to stop coloring my hair. Like, so I had been like coloring it, covering the gray, putting highlights, all this stuff. And for those of you who color your hair, I'm not down on it. You color it if you want to. For me, I didn't want to do it anymore. And so I went through this process. I cut my hair off, whatever. I got some people that were close to the strongest opinions about like anything I'd ever done. You cannot let your hair go gray. You will look so old. Like all these, I'm like, are we seriously talking about the fact that I'm up coloring my hair? Like I was really surprised about how opinionated in people in my life, like people close to me were really opinionated about this decision. I did it anyway, but it did make me pause, because I really just wondered, why is this such a big. And I think there's this fear factor in us as women, and aging is a part of that, right? And so we in subtle ways all the time try to push that back, to not embrace that aging process, which I think goes right into what you're talking about being so caught up in how we look, defining who we are. So, so you talk about sometimes about how dieting became an idol to you.
Oh,
What
yeah.
did it mean for you to surrender dieting as the Lord? I mean, I'm assuming that that was a spiritual process.
Oh, yeah.
And was that a quick decision or was that something that unfolded over time? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I actually had one of those like aha moments, like a big marked moment in my walk that I will never forget.
Yeah.
Like I tell you what day it was on.
Mhm.
It was an epiphany, a spiritual awakening, and I finally had eyes to see all this compulsive dieting and orthorexic behavior and how obsessive I was with food.
Mhm.
I saw it for what it was, which was an idol,
Yeah.
and I recognized what it had cost me and what it was costing me, and had to I had to surrender it in the
Yeah.
moment. And so that moment, the conviction made it a quick decision
Mhm.
in terms of like, I'm going to repent and turn from this right
Right.
now. But then
Recognize
you
it.
have to
Sure.
walk that out. And like surrender is, I think it's important to have big moments of surrender, but it's also an ongoing thing. Like it's a daily surrender, like
Amen.
a
Yes.
daily dying to self and going, nope, we're going to do it your way, Lord. Like I want to go, my flesh wants to go right on back to dieting and controlling. But that was not good. That was not
Right.
good for me.
Right.
It was not good for me spiritually, physically, emotionally. At no point was that a good thing for me. And I'm
Yes.
not saying people can't eat healthy and work out and do all of the stewardship behaviors in a way that is not necessarily bad. Like the way I was doing it was sin. I'm not trying to
Mhm.
say people making
I
healthy
understand.
lifestyle
Yes.
choices.
Mhm.
Um,
Yes.
it's not bad for everybody, but the way that I was doing it and my heart posture and the whole thing,
Yes.
it
Mhm.
absolutely was an idol, and I had to lay it down. I was
Yes.
totally convicted, and that conviction was such a gift because it made the decision a lot easier. If I had been kind of like, I don't know, maybe it's okay, like it would have dragged out
Mhm.
for longer. I mean, I gave
Yes.
at least 2 decades to dieting. That's
Mhm.
enough.
Yeah,
It was
I
enough.
relate to that so much in what I was saying about productivity because I would literally sign up for, a church committee or something at my boys' Christian school or something and lead it and serve, and I would get accolades from mankind because I'm so good at something, and it seemed like I was doing it for the Lord, but the reality was I was not doing it for the Lord, and it wasn't a bad thing like what you were saying, good things came out of it, but the Lord really opened to my eyes as you are using your like administrative gifts as an idol. I mean, it's the
Mhm.
same kind of process that you're talking about, and you need to be able to know that you are worthy because your faith in me makes you worthy, not in something that you do. And so it was really a laying that down. But I run to that sometimes when I'm feeling insecure or when I need a balm for that insecure whatever. I'm like I need to like do something, And so I totally get it. I think I know the enemy works in our lives to he sends us to things or opens our eyes to things that we think that we need so that we can have that illusion of control.
Yeah.
And it's about whether we trust ourselves to make ourselves worthy or enough or whatever, or whether we really trust that God alone does that. It was very hard for me anyway, to rest in just that and stay in that peaceful place of I am enough the way that I am. And I should be always looking for how God is like refining me and making me more pure.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I've heard you also say what we believe about food reveals what we believe about God. Can you unpack that just a little bit and talk to us about it?
Yeah. So I think this makes it back to that heart posture we were talking about
Mhm.
before, and the heart issue. Because if you feel that you have to take control in order to get an outcome, you're not believing that God is in control.
Yeah.
If your behaviors are showing what your heart really believes, and I just see that play out a lot with food. It could come up with the control issue, the fear issues, the scarcity issues with food. Even I
Mhm.
mean, it plays out. And so, if you really look at for me, I realized this through examining my eating and exercise choices. It's like, what does this say about what I believe? And it's that I am not enough as I am, and I have
Mhm.
to earn love by
Yes.
changing myself.
Yes.
That means that I believe that means I don't understand the gospels, what that means.
Yes. Yes. Right. Yeah. And how long would you say you're free of it?
Oh, yes.
Yes. And how long would you say you've been free of it?
I mean, I felt a huge amount of freedom, like the day of the awakening. Just
Okay.
and that will be 3 years this August.
Okay.
But I mean, it's like it gets better. It's not to say it hasn't
Yes.
even improved since then. I
Right.
feel like more peace and more like contentment with the way things are just by having walked it out long enough
Yes.
and continuing to grow and what I'm learning about it and being confirmed again and again that like, no, this is the right thing. You're on the right path. Like you're in alignment with the Lord. So I mean, yeah, it's even better now, but
Yeah.
it was immediately better. Just the surrender is actually like a really like luxurious feeling because it's like
Mm.
I don't have to carry this anymore. I'm going to lay it down and let you carry it and trust you with it. So
And would you say that sometimes you have, like, triggers or something, that make it what do you know
oh,
enough about yourself to say, this is when it gets hard? D
oh yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, that's not to say like everything is easy and it's
Oh, no.
all
Mhm.
sunshine and rainbows.
That's
Um,
the work in progress, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. I mean, obviously, I'm still gonna have bad body image days. I'm still gonna have days where I don't do what I know I should do and just, blow that wonderful alignment,
Mhm,
either by choice or by mistake. Like
mhm.
I'm human. It's gonna happen.
Right.
I'm gonna have bad days like that. The thing that's really changed is my response to that and how I can come
Oh,
back
yes.
and get back in alignment and recenter myself on God and begin again the next day
Mhm.
without without thinking that I've ruined everything
Right.
or, just
Now
without
I'm
the
bad.
shame and guilt
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
fear that
Yeah, yeah.
would keep me in prison before. Uh,
How would you say you recenter yourself on God? Can you tell us what is that like for you how do you do that?
I just kind of have a couple of like daily practices that help me to do that and keep focused on that. I mean,
Mhm.
it's just and it's not always the same every day, but
Right.
I mean, I
Mhm.
have just moments that I'm intentional about spending time with the Lord each day that kind of helps me do it, like a daily self-examination,
Mhm.
daily prayer, daily quiet time, and different parts of the day that just and I mean, I feel it's so personal. Like I
Yeah.
couldn't even explain it for somebody else because you kind of have to discover what that is for you. But for me, it's probably maybe 10 or 15-minute chunks, like 2 or 3 times within the day that
Gotcha. Mhm.
overall keeps
Calls you
me
back.
keeps me
Mhm.
feeling centered. And part of that is a meditation practice too. I've started meditating on the word and just also in silence
Mhm.
to kind of help me to train my mind like a muscle. It's kind of like a mental
Yes.
workout and to help
Yes.
me to actually uh, get clarity and get focus and center myself on a particular word or verse or something
Yes.
that grounds me.
Yes. I have talked to people before about, like, kind of breakthroughs, victory, healing, wholeness, some of those things, and I would get your opinion on this. I tend to say, if you really want freedom from something or you want something to change in your life, I think you have to look at your life and say, "Where am I going to incorporate more connected time with Jesus?" Because I think that it's not like you talked about a moment of spiritual awakening or a word that was kind of almost zapped into your heart, but the change can and tell me correct me if I'm wrong, but the change doesn't zap like that. The change is a decision over time, right? The conviction might come pretty quickly, but without this, and again, correct me when I'm wrong, but without this like daily intentionality of connecting with Jesus and staying connected with Jesus, then the change you're gonna grow. You're just gonna wonder why can't I do this? I think I don't know if you talk
Yeah,
more
no,
about
no,
that if
that's
you want to.
exactly it.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
talk about it as an ongoing process. It's a
Yes.
daily work,
Yeah.
daily surrender, daily alignment, everything. And that's so, for me, that was so, so, so different than a diet, which is like,
Mhm.
hit this 21 days and your life is different and forever. And just, it's not like it's not a one size fits all. It's not a one and done. It's
Right.
like you constantly have to be
Yeah.
vigilant and at work on it because your flesh will lead you astray.
Right, absolutely, yeah, and when something bad happens in your day that you can't control, then the first thing, if that's your go-to sort of, then the first thing you'll do is, well, then I won't eat anything but this tomorrow because I'll get control in this way, right?
Mhm.
So yeah, and it's just it's an old habit that takes it takes work and practice. Yeah, no matter what it is, in our lives, and also then just going back to that source that continues to pour into us and say you don't have to look this way to be valued and loved and used in
Mhm.
service to him. I mean, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So I heard you say on a podcast, even if you don't love your thighs, you can still be grateful for them. Will you talk about that like shift in focus, what that's like for you? Because I don't love
Yes.
my thighs. I'll be
Yeah.
very
So,
honest. That's everybody
yeah.
has like okay, I'm gonna ask you, doesn't everybody have like the one part of their body that they're like, no, this is the bad part of my body, right? Like so when you said that, I'm like, oh, how does she it's for me, it's definitely my legs. I don't have good legs. But yeah,
I think
talking
we
about
are.
that shift of focus. Yeah.
That's true of every woman I've ever talked to. Like
Yeah.
that's part of the culture we're in. Like it's impossible to not think that about yourself. Like it
Yeah.
would really take like a completely brainwashing yourself. And here's the thing that I had to realize too in all of this kind of unlearning diet culture and relearning what God has to say about my body and accepting myself as I am, it's like it's not about loving my body. I don't need to love it. Like that's
Mm.
pendulum swinging way too far in the other direction. Like when I was dieting, I was hating my body and trying to control it and fix it and change it, thinking that the goal was to love it. But that's not the goal either, because that's just another kind of obsession. Like that is
Oh, that's
not
yeah, that's
a
powerful.
healthy view of your body. The point is not to love it. The point is to not even it to be neutral, to not
Right.
have that be something you're thinking about. And like, can we talk about what actually matters in life? It's not our thighs, believe it
Yeah.
or not.
Right.
No matter
Yeah.
what culture has to say about that, it's not. And so, kind of recognizing that love is not the goal, and that
Mm.
my posture needs to be gratitude, regardless of what the appearance is. Because,
Mm.
like, just seeing your body as your gift and a vessel. Like it is for you to do things with. It's not to look a certain way.
Yeah, I
So,
love that because I think of it like this is the gift that I've been given so that I can do the work I'm called to, right? For as
mhm,
long as I can or
mhm,
have. And that's really good when, I'm like sitting behind this desk and then when you put on something that, doesn't look right or whatever, you're like, well, now, but I'm mad at it. And it's that tension all the time, I don't want to be mad at my body because it
yeah,
doesn't look the way that I want it to. I want to take care of it without, like you said, obsessing about it. Yeah.
yeah.
Hmm.
So letting go of the idea that you need to love it. You don't. It
Yeah.
doesn't really matter what.
Letting go of I love that. I don't put that on a shirt. Let go of the idea you need to love your body. You don't. Be
You don't.
grateful for your body and then move on with your day, right?
Yeah. And I mean, you can and be grateful for what your thighs can do for you, what
Yeah.
they allow you to do in your day, that you have them, that
Yeah.
they work.
Mhm. Yeah.
Like not what they look like.
Right. Yeah.
Doesn't
Yeah.
matter.
Hey,
Yeah.
last question before I want to ask you this just because it's current right now. Have you
Mhm.
seen any of what's going on in our nation, our world with COVID-19 and the shelter in place? Have you noticed that any impact on our relationship with food, dieting? Can you talk about that at all if you've seen anything like that?
Yeah. I have noticed, I think it's people are confronted with some of their issues that might have been below the surface before this
Okay.
thing happened. And I think a lot of people are noticing a control issue that maybe they hadn't realized they had. And
Mhm.
I don't have access to food in the gym in the way I normally would. How am I going to stick to this diet?
Yeah.
People with control issues are probably struggling.
Yeah. Yeah.
In addition to all of the other things they're struggling with, it's more difficult.
Mhm.
And so it's like the diet that would be a dieter who's struggling. Somebody that maybe didn't have food issues before might be struggling with some scarcity issues just because of access and fear
Yes.
and worried about money. And
Yes.
so, I mean, like even somebody that wasn't a dieter could be having food issues right now. And again, it's revealing that heart
Yes.
posture and what your fears are and what that can lead you to.
Mhm.
And then I would say just probably the most common one, and certainly the one I've had the most conversations about in the last 2 months, is people kind of the cultural term is emotional eating. I don't love that term, but
Okay.
basically, being stressed out and running to food to
Yes.
soothe yourself or to numb out or to escape
Yes.
as a coping mechanism. And that's fine. Like it is, but it's not meant to be a coping mechanism. It's meant to be a gift and a celebration. And when
Yeah.
we're kind of using food in a way that it's not really intended to be used, and also like not the best source of comfort. Like we have a God that we can run to with our problems, and that is such a better source of comfort
Yes.
than any food you could pick, whether it's quote healthy food or unquote healthy food. I'm using
Right.
quotes because I don't believe
Yes.
in any of those labels.
Right.
Just people that are coping in unhealthy ways, and could that be with food? And have I done that in shelter in place? Yes.
Yeah.
Not
Right.
perfect.
I definitely shelter in place or not, I find myself doing this is what I do sometimes, and I catch myself, is if I've had a stressful day, or for me, because I'm an introvert, if I've had a particularly, like, stimulating day with a lot of people or something, I will eat something when I'm not hungry because I kind of deserve it. I'm gonna use the quotes too, like, there's this and then while I'm eating it, I'm like, "Why are you eating this?" And that's what I think that's a little bit what you're talking about, because I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm eating this from a place that doesn't have anything to do with needing it or even wanting it. It's just like, well, I deserve this. And so, but I'm like, what? You deserve what? Because you've had some kind of day. So you're going to go to food and I definitely see myself from time to time doing that. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
one of the principles of intuitive eating is to cope with your emotions without using food.
Yes.
Because people in this country don't want to feel their feelings.
Yes.
And you
Yes.
gotta feel them at some point.
Yes.
So I like to kind of, and that's when I would use one of those little daily practices.
Uh-huh.
Maybe it's not in my scheduled time when I had it planned for, but if I'm having a tough moment, like it's time to, almost stop, drop, and pray on that kind of thing.
Yes.
Process that in a healthy way, feeling the feelings, praying it out, journaling it out, whatever it is you do to process those feelings, and lay them down.
Again, I think not because the food is bad or eating it is bad, it's just because that's not what it's designed for, right? That's what I hear you saying, that, we are designed for connection with creator. We're not gonna connect to that piece of whatever.
Yeah, food, and this is why it's a tricky one, and why I use the air quotes for emotional eating. I mean, eating as a coping skill is sometimes somebody's only coping skill. And in the grand scheme of coping skills, there are a lot worse ones you could be doing. So it's
Yes.
not to shame anybody that does that.
Right.
And it's not even to say you can't ever do that. It's to say, hey, that is just a tool in the tool belt. You got a much better tool.
Yes.
Plenty of other self-care practices you can do to process feelings in a healthy way. That may or may not even include prayer, but like there's
Right.
other things you can do.
Right.
So just know, I feel like a lot of people get in a routine of doing something like what you described for you, like on a hard day, I deserve this treat.
Yes.
You're soothing and you probably deserve something, but
Right.
what is it that you actually need in that moment? And is
Yes.
that an opportunity to pause and check in with yourself and pray about it and be like, Lord, show me what I actually need right
What
now.
do I think that's
So,
beautiful. What do I actually need right now? Because
and if
it's
it's a
not.
gratitude, then fine. But if it's,
Yeah.
if you
Right.
need a nap, if you need to call a friend,
Right.
if you need a
Yes.
glass of water, if
But
you
anytime I'm in the fridge or in the pantry, like, what do I want to eat? It's not hunger that's moving me there, right? Or I would not like, I'm just like, "Oh, I don't know," and then I'm back and forth, "What do I want to eat?" Like, you're not hungry. You're looking for something to fill something that
Mhm.
it's not really designed to fill.
Yeah.
I mean, I do catch myself doing that from time to time,
Yeah,
so.
eating for boredom, I think, is something I've heard a lot of people complain about right now. It's like, well, there's nothing else to do, so I'm just gonna snack on whatever's
Yeah.
around because I'm stuck in the house and I'm bored.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, I've started hearing people talk about, like, the COVID 15, like, people talk about the freshman 15. I'm sure you've seen that, and I'm like, I don't think that's funny at all,
no,
not because, I mean, people gain weight, and it's not like the end of the world, but I'm like, I think because it speaks to something that's pretty dangerous underneath that. That's just my opinion from seeing that, because it just speaks to how we're all not feeling our feelings or dealing with, whatever it is, the anxiety or the nervousness that's going on during this time period.
yeah, that phrasing, I was not surprised to see it pop up, but it is such a good example of how diet culture is
Mm.
spiritual warfare. Like, think about
Mm.
what that actually is. Like, that is hitting below the belt, and
Mm.
it's so sneaky. It's like it wants it wants to take your life and make you obsess about food and your weight, and there's a pandemic on. It is not about you and your body. Like, can we not go there? And I think it really shows how insidious diet culture is. I've seen a ton of posts on social media about you know, you have nothing else to do, so you better work out, you got no excuses kind of stuff, and just shaming people for their choices that they're making in a crisis. It's like, come on, that is not of God.
Right. Yes. Right. Because it's not encouraging. Like you said, it's shaming. Yeah. It's right. Yeah. And anything that feels like shaming isn't of God. Because even when he corrects us, I always say it's a loving invitation to align our heart with his. It's not this like, so.
Yes, absolutely.
I have appreciated this conversation so much. Is there anything else, any final thoughts or anything that you're reading, working on? I want to definitely ask where we can follow you, but any other just kind of last thoughts or encouragement you'd like to leave us with?
I just would like to leave everybody with the encouragement that if you haven't ever questioned your relationship with food and your body before, this is a great time to do it. And there are tons of faith-based resources for you to explore that. And I'm hoping that my ministry and my writings are going to speak into that going forward. But like, that is a conversation to have with God sooner rather than later. And him and peace on the other side of like what I experienced. I mean, I want that for every woman.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you so much. Where can we follow you and find more of your writings and thoughts? Yeah, we'd love to be able to do that.
Thank you, Angie. Okay, so my blog is erinltodd.com. It's also Ginger in Progress. So if you search Ginger in Progress, you'd be able to find it.
Ginger in Progress. Okay, yeah.
That's my Instagram handle, Ginger in Progress with underscores. And I'm hoping this summer we'll finally get it launched, but I'm working on an intuitive eating for Christian women podcast that is going to unpack each of the 10 principles of intuitive eating from a biblical perspective and teach it. Essentially, it'll be like a very long podcasty online course kind of thing.
Yeah, but there's probably my guess is there's probably a lot of things to explore at each step of that. It's a 10-step education. Yeah, well, we're excited for you about that. Yes, I look forward to that. And whenever that launches, I want to stay in touch with you so that I can let these good people on the Steady On page know about that, so they can those that are interested in following you. So Ginger in Progress is where you can find Erin L. Todd. And again, thank you so much for your time today. This has been really, I think, really just encouraging for all of us. So we appreciate you. Right. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.